Hey, how's it going, guys? So I made a video a while ago about like are Gen Xers and millennials really that different? Now, bottom line, I think it's all about the individual. I actually got a lot of interesting comments from the Gen X crew, right? Because they were the ones that were really commenting some strong stuff. I think a lot of the millennials would probably agree that not all like Gen Xers are responsible. Now, I didn't say Gen Xers as a whole are irresponsible, just like I don't think millennials as a whole are irresponsible or entitled or whatever these generations like to sling at one another. Because you could tell there's a real thing, right? Where you can look at the Gen Xers and they look at some of the, for lack of a better term, lowest hanging fruit that our current internet culture has come across, and they said, oh, like things like we're glad we're not going to be around for the future to see how bad things turn out, but at the same time, I've seen a lot of millennials who just have been kind of not given adequate stuff. And even me, like, I don't think there's any such thing as a perfect parent. Now, did my parents do a terrible job? No. They did their best, but did they fall short in certain aspects where I had to, like, kind of put those pieces back together in my later adulthood? Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of demons and soul searching and demon slaying that I had to do. But like I remember, like I watched this video of this one girl who was crying about her mom or something, making her get like a full time job or something like that, or however this person identified. I don't know what they identified as, but they were on medication, and you could tell they just weren't in the most emotionally stable place. And it got me thinking about the time where I was put in therapy for lashing out at a bully, right? And I was diagnosed as bipolar, which I never really was. I just had a natural human response to being messed with enough to the point where you finally just snap. You have enough and you lose your cool, right? And then that gets attributed with bipolar. And then you're told by therapists like time and time again that natural human responses are a bad thing and should stay away. And then your emotions get all out of whack, and it's a long road to rebuild yourself as time goes on. So I'm thinking of this person that was shouting at their parents, right? Like, did therapists tell her that there was, or him or whoever it was, that there was something wrong with them, that they were defective, or were they just having some natural responses that were dismissed with pharmaceutical medications, and the Gen Xers oversaw that kind of stuff because they didn't see anything wrong with therapy and taking pills and numbing our agents without getting the root cause, which is probably a no-brainer, right? I think that a lot of these pills that these therapists push are absolute trash. But I just kind of see misguidedness. I can't really call anybody evil until I know their entire story, because I think a lot of people who have poor ethics come into these environments where they just don't know what to do, or they just need to learn how to survive, and those habits follow them, because after all, like, we're all human, right? But it's also another thing when you like go and see these Gen Xers who run these businesses who you used to work for, and you quit because they weren't equipping the company to succeed, and now they're going out of business like 2 years later, right? So it's not I mean, that happens more often than not. So what I'm saying is, like, not all Gen Xers are responsible. I mean, a lot of them are, and I've seen a lot of Gen Xers who have their stuff together and who have life wisdom that I like to look towards. But then I see a lot of millennials who have their stuff together because they were either equipped for it, or you just see a complete misguided figure who's so far down that dark rabbit hole that maybe their parents misled them. Maybe their family dynamic was toxic. Maybe their emotional needs as a human being weren't met, because whether you want to admit it, I mean, I acknowledge that you don't want to quit when the going gets tough, and sometimes you do have to suck it up a little bit just to make it through the hard times. But when you don't, at the start of their life, emotionally equip them or give them good emotional baselining as a parent, you're really setting your kids up and yourself up for a hardship and a harsh, like, reawakening. Just kind of like maybe Gen Xers thought that things were going to be as good as they were in the 80s all the time. They probably didn't see that, but I've noticed some things when you have things that good, you start to get very nearsighted, because you know that you never think that anything's going to come and crash your parade like somewhere down the line, where it's like, I think, especially me as myself, I usually look long term and I see, okay, how could I cover my end on this end, where I'm just covering myself in case something were to go wrong. And sometimes I am called crazy by short-sighted people that no, you're just being paranoid. You're just stressing out over nothing. But some of those boogie monsters that you're hypothetically worried about can very well be real. It's like always a better safe than sorry thing, because you never know what the future holds. And I think it's absolute hubris to think that it does. But, do I think Gen Xers did a horrible job as a whole? I can't really statistically back that up, because I've seen a lot of Gen Xers who have raised really great kids who are going out into this world and succeeding. But then you see, just like maybe the boomers did to the Gen Xers, or how the Gen Xers' parents treated them sometimes. Not every household was successful for the Gen Xer. Even my mom, like if I were to hear the stories about where she came from as a kid and how she tried to build herself up and do better, I can understand that she grew up in a very violent, crime-ridden environment that she really had to dig herself out of to become a mother in a stable household, right? So there's going to be misguidedness and just poor growing up environments for a lot of people that don't give them a good schooling environment or a good stable environment for them to practice sports. Excuse my yawning. But one of the things that I've realized is there's no honest dialogue between the Gen Xers and the millennials anymore. And I can't force there to be dialogue between the Gen Xers and the millennials anymore, especially between child and parent, because I just know child and parent units that don't talk to each other anymore. But I also do see a lot of those pairs that are very tight. Like some of my friends are very close with their parents because they know that by blood their parents have their back and all that stuff. And it's pretty, I mean, being this old, we shouldn't be looking to our parents for this much stuff. And some of us are just all scared, confused, and winging it as the time goes on, right? And maybe that's the thing, is maybe sometimes we do need to wing it a little bit. You can't, some planning is good, but to realistically plan every little thing out in real life like it's a computer program, it just doesn't happen. Like, life is not a gigantic if else statement. There's a lot of variables that come in gray areas, and I think Gen Xers did, to be honest, forget about that in a while, where we didn't really see the big pharma boom come into what it was today, or we didn't see a lot of this demoralizing economy where no one really wants to work. It's not that a lot of millennials and Gen Zers are lazy. What I think it is it's just, they've worked, they've gone to school all this much. A lot of them did exactly what they were told and supposed to do, right? It's not like they failed or did anything wrong, but they were misled. And if you're misled and misguided by teachers and figures that have misguided you, of course you'd be upset. When the power structures lie to you, of course you'd be upset. And some of them are just being honest about themselves about, is this a fair system? Absolutely no, it's not. But dismissing and just telling someone that they're a baby because they have an actual concern, to me, is just as bad, in my opinion. So, like I said, it's all up to the individual. If you're a Gen Xer who did his job and raised his kids, or you were a boomer who did that certain thing, good for you, man. I mean, I'm glad that you were the net positive. And to the ones who abandon their kids, absolutely shame on you. To the millennials that have tried being responsible, I tip my hat off to you. It's not easy to be encouraged to be responsible when you see the current TikTok culture and short-sightedness of gang, 420, no cap, YOLO savage that comes out all over the place. You just see this and you're like, man, it would be like my words falling on deaf ears, because everyone has a worse attention span than that of a goldfish. So it's really hard to stay encouraged to keep pushing through and keep making works of art that can better society when AI can just do it for you now, right? But I tip my hat off to the people who push through, and to the people who want to use a troubled past as a crutch to just burn the world down. I would put you in that category. Maybe you got to get it together a little bit. But I think that's my gray area rant with no actual plane landing that I could tell. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't know. But what are your thoughts? Do you think that there was some missing parent dynamics or missing child dynamics between the generations? I'll see you next time.